Felix, we lost you. Are you muted?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
Is this the screen? There's a screen. Let me share again. So, thank you, Janet, for that reminder. So, so we are ready to start today. The class is strategic planning. This is our fourth. We call it fourth session. Each session is normally 3 classes. So now we are starting week 9. So this will be week 9, week 10, 11, and 12. So we've done already 9 weeks. So now what strategic planning does, it looks at everything we've been doing, and now we want to map all that together into now execution. Execution can be done now in terms of planning. How does all the elements we did from week 1 sit now into the organization? How do we connect all of them into one unit? And now we plan to execute. So that is what we'll be focusing today. We'll be touching actually on everything we've been doing. So it will also be a good refresher for all of us. So I would want to start by asking for a clarification or the difference between strategic planning and a strategic plan. What do you think is the difference between strategic planning and a strategic plan? Ben, what do you think is the difference?
I would say strategic planning is a process, while strategic plan is something already active.
Spot on, spot on. One is the process, the other one is the product. Kariuki, which one is better between the two? Which one is superior?
Sorry, Felix, between strategy and planning.
Strategic plan and the strategic planning.
I wouldn't say there is one which is superior. I think one is a result of is a consequence of the other. A strategic plan would be as a result of strategic planning.
Spot on, spot on. Spot on. So what has happened before is when you're given a strategic plan to implement, a lot of time it becomes the buy-in becomes a challenge, the ownership becomes a challenge. So now the approach has evolved a bit. So nowadays we are putting more emphasis on the process, which means we're going to involve everybody, all the stakeholders. We need to be part of the process, and being part of the process, they will now understand the why. Why are we doing this? For what? And what is the origin? How is it going to impact on us? So now a lot of emphasis is done on the process. That means previously you could easily outsource and tell a consultant, I need a plan. I need a plan for my company. And within 5 days, they will have developed a 20-page document, and they give you a strategic plan. That would have been used for tendering or for the investors, just to show them you have a document. However, that document you will struggle. That document will not speak to you. It will not speak to the leadership, because it is not their idea. So, however good we are in strategic planning, if I was to do for your organization, then I will not bring you the document. I will not bring you the product. I will come and now work with you through workshop and spend a whole 2 weeks to 1 month helping your team to develop a strategic plan. So that is the major difference. So now the journey we are taking today is we are involving you on the understanding the foundations of a strategic planning, such that now you can actually develop one for your organization, one for yourself, and one for your teams. So this kind of planning will exist in 3 levels. Level number 1 will be at the corporate level. When you look at the entire organization, we will have a corporate strategic plan, which speaks at the organizational level. Now, when you break this down to the business units, now the business units will pick some of the areas of that strategic plan and convert that to their goals, and then develop theirs now downward so that they can help develop fit into yours. And then the third level is called the departmental departmental level, where they will also develop theirs, but based on yours. So the 3 will be, the last one will be quite detailed and speaking to a very low level. So we will be able to see those differences. So Simon always tells me culture eats strategy for breakfast. I'm sure most of us have come across that statement, and we want to put that statement into perspective. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. So I want to invite my colleague Simon to take us through culture, how it eats strategy for breakfast. So what is this culture, and how does it relate to strategy? That means we should not go to strategy if we don't touch culture. If we don't have culture, we should not even attempt to implement and execute strategy. So what is this culture? Mr. Simon.
Thank you, Felix. I know traditionally we'll define culture as our way of doing things. Recently, with the evolvement of technology and equally the need to remain productive has again even much more eroded this particular conversation, in that culture has been converted into an event or a one-off function. But the reality is we need to demystify what exactly this means. It is an organized and a structured approach into how we go about doing things at an activity or process level. So if then it's organized and at the same time structured, that means there are foundations and there are principles underlying to critically define what a culture looks like. So if I go back now straight to what we have from Felix on the screen, you would appreciate culture has got 4 facets, if you are to look at it. And these facets are actually applicable both in formal and at formal sectors, and not only limited to the 2, but equally now at the personal level. What you will appreciate as Felix walks us through this particular session is that more often we align a strategic planning and a strategy at a product level to only within the space of the corporate environment. But then you would realize, even from the classes that we've walked through, all through to the final session of Janet, there was more emphasis and push to plan and organize ourselves, short-term and long-term. And of course, when the likes of Felix were giving out their own personal experience, they cited to have planned for about 10 years to own a home. Yet a strategy will actually be either mid-term 3 years or long-term 5, 7, 10 years. So this conversation is not purely within now the spaces of corporate, but equally now at personal and professional levels. So number one of the facets is actually now the governing principles, or rather a governing body. And in this particular space, we pick the mindset in the form of a vision, and equally now in the form of a mission. And the breakdown or interpretation of this will give us a direction and a purpose as to why exactly we exist. So the repackaging, or what we are likely to pick here at the product level, will now be the organizational key results. What is it that this enterprise or organization really exist for? What problems and solutions are we providing at any given time? So what we are picking, as he has rightly outlined, every time we walk into organization's website, we interact with the vision, mission, and even the core values. But then when you look at it now from the premise of a strategy, you will break down the same into the goals, objectives, the strategies, and equally tactics that more often gives you or lands you into the organization key results. The disconnect here, just to highlight, is that one, you have enterprises or organization, or even at individual level, we package ourselves with a vision, a mission, and values, which we've never actually gotten to bother to go back to and refer. So really, they don't stand to be meaningful or meet us along our way of lives. They purely came in because you would realize we were only interested to sort of like package ourselves with a strategic document, which does not necessarily speak to us. So as you look through this particular line one, you need to ask yourself at personal and corporate level, your own vision, mission, and values primarily, whether they speaks to what you do apparently, and what the organization stands for as an institution. So it's very important to practically align this, because in the absence of you being onboarded to the mission, it means you're not moving in the same direction of with this particular organization. And for the mission, you do not stand for the purpose as to why that enterprise exists. So that is the facet number one. The facet number two is now purely the organization structure. And this stands to break down the organization in terms of representation of how it functions. By the time we were doing an opening presentation of ourselves, we either introduce ourselves as finance guys, project management, legal directors, others in operation, etc., etc. So what now happens at this particular level is that you come in and introduce to break down the organization key results into achievable goals and objectives, which are now pursued by the people, representation in the form of the various roles and responsibilities that they are assigned to them. So you have the duties, you have the responsibilities, you have the reporting line and structure, all broken down into this particular space. For support, if you go back to P&L, as Janet has walked us through, you'd realize they fall highly on the indirect cost. There is no outright relationship between this particular team to revenue. But when you go back to operations, the case of project managers, etc., they have a direct relationship to revenue in that they're interacting with the customers. They have resources in the form of team, suppliers, and business partners assigned to them directly to create and develop revenue. So if you are to pick an example of between Philip and Benson, you'd realize Philip is in operations directly associated to revenue. For Ben, who is in finance and admin, this is purely supporting, coming in now to enable the operations to invoice, debt collection, reconciliation, after they've already executed tasks and they are ready to convert the same into revenue. So more often for all employees within mid-level, a senior level, they come in at this particular space. But their main objective of having the structures in an organization is to now hold the organization at the governing principle level. So that weight in entirely sits at this particular space. So when you sit and when you're in an organization now, as we had broken it during our first class at the HR level, you need to consistently ask yourself, what exactly are you in your specific duties and responsibilities? How are they speaking to the organization in terms of the governing principle or body? And of course, number 3 is the unity of purpose. Most organizations will exist for a varied reason. Some will exist for profits, others will exist for actually now an impact. If you look at the NGOs, most of them will come in and exist for an impact. If you look at enterprises and businesses, purely they want to see a bottom line, which has profit. Again, going back to P&L, the way Janet had broken it to us. If you look at churches, they'll exist to come in and impact positively on people to improve of their own social behaviors, habits, norms, and values to be better persons in the society. So that unity of purpose is what now you serve. If your organization does not necessarily exist for a profit, then are you in a position to validate that that impact is being achieved at the end of the day? If you exist to eradicate poverty, is it happening? If you exist to impact people in terms of knowledge, development, is it really happening? If you keep on quality like Kenya Bureau of Standards, is it really happening? So we need to consistently ask ourselves at personal and even now at corporate level, formal or informal, whatever that we are involved in, does it meet and serve the purpose as to why we exist? And of course, the last one now is the routines. Routines, these are the norms, or these are the habits. These are what we do on a regular basis to come in and now get to establish whether really we are right on course to achieve our unity of purpose. Performance management is one of a very strong routine. I remember Felix has broken it to Ireri that it's not an event, but rather is a continuous process. So as you consistently get to sit and analyze, get to sit and monitor, get to sit and evaluate how our teams are performing, how the business is performing, based on now, again, going back to our mission and vision and reflecting it at this all level in unity of purpose. We really need to ask ourselves whether we are up to these routines. When Martin says for 2 weeks, it has been hectic, I will assume if he was not actually at a strategy level, then he was typically looking into it now from a routine level. And I know, Felix, after I'm done, you can ask Martin really to come in and tell us, walking through this particular table, what exactly is it that had tied him down and how it speaks to the culture. The trainings and development that the organization sponsors us in also equally comes in to really be very useful in this particular concept. So as I conclude, culture is not an event, is not a one-off. You'll not imagine one day and you wake up and you start over culture. There has to be a structured, organized, meaningful purpose that really why that organization exists as it does. How does it eat strategy? If you come back now to the structure, you expect now leadership sits here. That senior leadership in an organization sits here. A lot of collaboration and not competition and not cooperation exists within this particular space. So if you have a leader, for example, who is very weak in their own emotional intelligence, in that they do not understand how they can use and manage their own emotions to impact on others, then you would realize as you pursue the organization objectives and the organization key results, there will always be disconnect because these people are not running the organization from a perspective of informing, from a perspective of involving, from a perspective of bringing in trust and inspiring others, but rather they are pushing it through force, they are pushing it through anger. They really not they're really not collaborating and incubating the people's mind to buy into that particular vision. So this way you're likely to pick a lot of distraction. Interpersonal relationship will not really exist at this space. And all of a sudden you would realize anything new or any move or plan you intend to put in place will not see end of day, because that quality of leadership does not embrace or onboard rightful thinking and involvement of people, and does not believe in inspiring and on having people to come in and really facilitate to the achievement of the day-to-day objectives. So you cannot have a strategy that is functional and that can be felt in the event the culture does not come in and embrace that indeed we have, we can actually come in and have a strategy and it move all the way to the success. If you match now this to the succession planning, you'd realize once you have the culture right, it will come in and hold the strategy. So the continuity of the business from a culture strategy perspective will always be aligned to move the organization forward. But if you miss it at this stage, you don't have the ethos, you don't have the strategy, you cannot, you see these organizations that cannot actually again come in and succeed. So maybe Felix, I can bring it back to you, but as you take it over, would you mind a minute for Martin to tell us within this drawdown, what exactly was tying him for the 2 weeks that he has been busy? Thanks, Felix, and back to you.
Thank you, Simon. That is spot on and very well explained. Martin, which line here were you addressing in those 2 weeks?
Yes, Felix. Yeah, thanks, Simon. So what I was involved in is a 5-year strategy formulation for the company. So when I joined, I found already they had a consultant who was guiding the process, and they had come up with four pillars that were to define our strategy. And the first pillar was financial resilience and sustainability. Then we had customer and brand. Then we had operational excellence. And the fourth one was people and culture. So my two areas where I was deeply involved was financial resilience and sustainability. And this is where now I was supposed to take the board through a financial strategic plan that would see the company grow in the next 5 years. So the challenge here was that we had to review first where we are. They already had a 3-year strategy that is ending this December. And now the 5-year strategy starts January 2024. So we were looking mainly at the main concern for the shareholder was the profits. Okay, so they are saying the company has been in existence for 10 years and has made the profits that the shareholders are realizing is not to their expectation. So what is it that we will do differently for the next 5 years to give the shareholders more value? Then that would now come down to the structure. How do I want to structure the team? If the current structure is not working, the current governance is not working. And that was a hot area because the company was structured to really adopt the group structure. So as you mentioned, there's already a group strategy for 5 years. And now for Lights, which is a subsidiary of the CPF group, we were drawing our strategy, as Felix mentioned, from the group strategy to form the company strategy, okay? But now there's some governance structure that has already been set by the group. And if you look at the business that the group does, it's not in line with the business like that Lights, the company that I'm leading is called Lights, does, okay? So there's a certain way, there's a certain form of governance that was, we realized is not in line for a modern ICT company compared to a company that deals with government pension schemes. So that was now the bone of contention, and that was where I was really involved. What is it now, Martin, you're bringing from outside now that you've been in the private sector, and we want this subsidiary to run like a private company, not really following the structure of this CPF, we were told, is a semi-autonomous government agency. So you realize most of the processes are government-like in terms of structure. So what is it that I want to change in the structure of governance for Light so that we are able to realize shareholder value for an IT company? Then, of course, we formed the vision and the mission of the company and the values. Again, drawing those from the group. We have to look at what the group has set as their vision and mission, and so that we speak the same language, then we had to formulate our own mission, vision, and the values. So those three were really the most of the areas of my involvement. Then about routines, performance management, now I have managers who are managing the various teams, and then they would come in with their balanced scorecards and the various activities that would see us achieve our strategy. So in a nutshell, that is what was happening, and my main challenge was just very quickly understanding the past, because you really can't start from nowhere. There's a reason that has led the company to where it is right now, and that is what I quickly needed to understand, so that the decisions that we are making are based on the actual status of the company. Felix, back to you.
Thank you, Martin, for sharing that. So I'm picking that you are reviewing and updating the outgoing strategy so that you develop for the next term. So exactly. We'll see where that comes in. Actually, I understand now in the corporate level you had already existing strategy. So we will see how to develop one from fresh, and which can also be reviewed and updated from time to time. So now when you look at this page, and remember the lesson number 2 when Simon took us through the ideal organizational model, where we had the OKRs, the organizational key results, being supported by the organizational capabilities, which is now the people and the structure, who produces the organizational capabilities, which are the processes and the routines. Now, I hope you see how now that triangle or that pyramid for our ideal organizational model maps into the culture. So I said I will align all the other trainings into this. All right. So moving to the next one, just for our knowledge, we define this plan as a roadmap. When you look at your Google Maps, if you are to guide someone from Nairobi to Garissa, then you know the start and you know the end. The start is Nairobi, the end is Garissa. But which road networks they are going to use, and which the Google will always tell you some roads are not as efficient as the other routes because of traffic congestion. So now the strategic plan is the roadmap, which tells you which is the most efficient route. Which is the most efficient route, and it fills the gaps in between the destiny. If the destiny is how we need to be performing at the 7th year, then we need the roadmap to tell us how are we going to move there sequentially from year 1 to year 2 to year 3. So look at it as a roadmap. So what does a roadmap mean? It means you're going to use it every day in your operation so that it is speaking to you. It's a live document. So we don't want to keep it and look at it at year 7. When you think about the Safari Rally, they are best users of roadmaps. So you don't want to drive without this roadmap. Again, we said process is as important as the product, but process now we are putting more emphasis on the process so that we can draw ownership at that level. Then this document is the one which brings together stakeholders and sets clear the strategic priorities. because it communicates the goals, the strategies, and the programs which we are going to execute. Then at the final level, it will now be the document which will bring engagement, motivation, and it will help us now retain both external and internal audience when we are addressing ourselves to the board, when we are addressing ourselves to the staff, when we are addressing ourselves to either donors or our funders. This document will be the document to give us common platform of communication. So when we talk about the process, how does it flow? Janet, I know you've been involved in a multinational. I may want to understand whether you are executing a strategy or you also got a chance to be involved in the process of developing one. Janet.
Thank you, Felix. And even as I speak, I've seen Martin's comment, and I feel him. You know, when you work for these global multinationals, the strategy tends to be formulated at the global level. And you who are working in the end markets in the countries, you are expected to execute it. Now, the challenges I've seen, I'll use two examples, one in Unilever and one in BAT. Unilever had this dream of having very few global brands. You see the way when you have a company like Coca-Cola, a Coke is the same regardless of which country you travel to in the world. And they had that dream for the culinary business, and they wanted to migrate all the cubes and mchuzi mixes to Knorr. So in Kenya, we had been asked to change Royco to Knorr. And we all know from when we were young, Royco was in the red packaging. And that's why it changed to green, because they had hoped to change it. But the feedback we gave them from Kenya is that the name Knorr does not resonate with our markets. Can you imagine somebody in Shags trying to say Knorr, even pronouncing it? And so that strategy failed. Coming to BAT, we all know in Kenya, the biggest cigarette brand is Sportsman. Now, globally, the same story, BAT wanted only global brands. So we had been asked to migrate Sportsman into Pall Mall. And we all know we tried introducing Pall Mall into the Kenyan market and it didn't work. So I like what Martin is saying, that they had to change everything from even the culture to let it speak to our local market. So what I would say, even for those multinationals, it is very important to localize the strategy. Otherwise, it will not work. Thank you.
Thank you for that contribution.
Janet, I've never known how to pronounce that word until today.
No.
That Knorr.
No.
Awesome. So that's why now we keep insisting on the process, because if a strategy is cascaded from the multinational, it might not speak now to your level. That's why now, even when you're asking people to do their departmental or their business units, let them do it. Don't give them the corporate strategy. Then they need to be helped to do a document which speaks and represents their values and their functions. So as Martin said, a strategic plan, the first process will be now to know where you stand. Where are we today? Against now, what is the future? If the future is 5 years, right now, if our performance is an annual turnover of $1 million, where do we see ourselves after 5 years? Do we want to achieve $5 million, which is 5x growth, what kind of performance and how radical will that be? Will that performance be? How ambitious is our goal setting in terms of where we want to be? So looking at where we are and what is speaking to where we are today, what is enabling, what capabilities we have, how big should be our dream in the next 3 to 5 years? If you have clear on those two, where you are and where you want to go, then now you can develop a plan. This plan is now the strategic plan that will take the entire process. So number 3 is where we do the planning. Of course, now number 4 is executing year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. And then you come to a point like now what Martin was doing, they were revising and restructuring the plan. So when you come to the end of the plan, even at the middle of the plan, you can review annually and realize this plan is not addressing certain markets. And then you can call a workshop to do an update or review of your plan, so that the plan should always be aligning to the business and the changes of whether there's change in technology, there's change in the market, there's change in government policy. Call in your planning very quickly and realign that. So if you follow the process, now the plan becomes a document you want to own and to speak to your organization. So now let us understand, if you're to develop for your organization or even for your future team, if one day you have an enterprise, you are a founder, where do you begin to develop a strategic plan? So I will break this into 2 parts. The first part, I will call it the what. And the second part is the how. So what do we want to achieve in 5 years? We want to achieve financial growth and resilience, as Martin put it. So we may give it a number, 3x, 5x, financial growth. That is what we want to achieve. If it's an NGO, we want to impact 10,000 people from poverty or from a certain disease. We want to eradicate this within this timeline. That is the what. So for us to deliver that big picture, what must we do? We need to address ourselves to our revenue turnovers. We need to address ourselves to our internal processes. We need to address ourselves to our customer experience. And we need to address ourselves to our people competencies through learning and development. Those becomes the objective. What must we address ourselves to achieve the bigger what? When you look at these two, they actually speak to our vision and mission. So the goal becomes our vision. The bigger picture becomes our vision. Now that vision is what translates to our goal. The objectives are represented in our mission. What are we doing every day? We are managing our revenues. We are managing our customers. We are managing our processes. We are managing our learning and development. Those becomes the objectives. But now we know what we want to achieve. The other question is, how do we get ourselves there? So you see, I've called it a ghost model because it's moving from goals, objectives. Now we want to see how. So how to make these objectives the reality? We want to use certain strategies. So the strategy for financial resilience, for revenue, for increase of revenue, what strategies do we want? We want to grow our top number. We want to reduce our COGS, for example. That will speak now to our financial objectives. If you look at your financial objectives, maybe you want to increase your profitability ratios and liquidity ratios. Profitability ratios, of course, we are talking about the gross profit margin and the net profit margin. So when we say the strategies will be very clear. We want to increase our gross profit margin by 40%, by 10%. We want to increase our net profit margin by 5%. Those are strategies. But what tactics will help us achieve those strategies? So I want to grow my gross profit margin by 10%. So I'm going to increase my pricing. I'm going to increase my share of market. I'm going to increase my customer base. What strategies? How are you going to increase your net profit margin? I'm going to reduce my operational expenditure. I'm going to reduce my tax liabilities. I'm going to reduce this. So I'm going to so you ask yourself, what are the tactics to deliver that strategy? I hope it makes sense. So we started by saying our goal, we took the first goal as an example. We need financial resilience, and the objective becomes now financial performance. And the strategy will be improve your gross profit margin, improve your net profit margin, and we have tactics which are very clear. So once we set this in this manner, it becomes clear, it becomes effective to execute. Now, when you look again at the goals can be a few, can be between 4 to 6. In this case, I have 4 goals. Using the balanced scorecard, I will have a financial performance goal. I want to have customer experience goal. I want to address myself to my internal processes. I want to address myself to our learning and development for the people competencies. Those are 4 major goals at the corporate level. So objectives will be able to go through them, strategies and tactics. So once you have the 4 in place, now it becomes very easy to action. So this is what we call the GOT model and gives us the complete framework. Now, at this point, I want to ask, is there a difference between a business plan and a strategic plan? Because you can see clearly I've not talked about vision, I've not talked about mission, I've not talked about values, I've not talked about competitor analysis, I've not talked about landscape, our SWOT analysis. I've just created a roadmap. I've said we want to move from year 1 to year 5. And I've got now that the strategic summary. So who do I have on the line? I need to ask one person. Philip, what would you say is the difference between business plan and a strategic plan? Henry, do you want to try?
Yes, Felix, I can try. I am thinking in my understanding, there would not really be a big difference between the business plan and a strategic plan, because I would classify the strategy as the big body, the umbrella body, and the business to be very specific. For example, if I'm talking about my strategy in terms of getting clientele, that would form part of the business, rather business plan. How do I get to woo clients? How do I get to get new areas of the business and whatnot? Then the strategic plan for me would be the entire business now, encompassing various aspects, whether it is human resource, whether it is finance. How I will interact with other external stakeholders. That's how I would want. That's how I am looking at it as a major difference.
Thank you.
Hello.
Great.
Yeah, can I try?
Yes, Philip.
As I know, a strategic plan is a way or an organization communicates to its core business so that it can give direction and the plans and its goals. At the same time, a business plan is just a mere written document which describes the entire business activities and objectives. That's what I know.
Okay, very good attempt. Very good attempt. So when you're launching a new business, you may want to start from a business plan. When you're going to the investors, what you will be presenting is a business plan. Now, a business plan is where you begin, is the foundation, is the most powerful document. In a business plan, I will do my competitor analysis. I will do my SWOT analysis. I will do my market analysis. I will do my financial forecast. I will be able to forecast. I will do my vision and mission, because now we are forming the company in that stage. But now it will be so exhaustive and very detailed in all those areas, but it will not tell me how we are moving from year 1 to year 10. It will tell me what the business stands for, who are our competitors, and why we are, what our strengths and weaknesses in SWOT analysis. You will do a lot of work, a lot of analysis and investigation in a business plan. So when we're doing a strategic plan, we lift information from the business plan. I will check the business plan and I will lift the values, the mission, the vision, and then put them here. The discovery was done in the business planning. But now here, I'm just now utilizing some of those segments. You may or you may not want to put a financial forecast in your strategic plan, because it will be read together in the business plan. So you'll come across strategic plans which are not featuring SWOT analysis, competitor analysis, or financial forecast, because the two documents can be read together. Or some people may want to put it in one document so that the strategic plan will also carry features of the business plan. So I'm sure the strategic planning for Martin was end to end. Martin, did it have financial forecast?
Yes, it did.
Okay, so that is the major difference. So what we are focusing on today is really the roadmap. The roadmap is the what and the how. The other functions, you will see me not covering them, because they are expected to have been done in business planning. I hope it makes sense. So the Japanese say, if you spend 90% of your time and effort planning, then you will spend 10% of your effort and time executing. And Simon will always tell me, if you need to cut a tree, spend 45 minutes sharpening the axe and 7 minutes cutting the tree. So now defining the what and the how needs to take that kind of attention. This is extremely important. And then all the other facets will fall in place very easily. If we have our tactics very clear, then we can do now competition analysis and our SWOT and our market survey, share of market and financial forecast very easily. So our focus will be on this ghost model today. I think I am clear on that. So what we are going to do, because of time, we are going to do assemble strategic plan together right now, right here. And we have 4 goals. Goal number 1 is financial performance. So let's say this is a 5-year strategy. goal number one is financial performance. So I know Janet is very strong in the area of finance. I will be inviting her to guide us on what the objectives I've developed, they make sense, and break it down for us. Janet, I know it's an ambush, but this is finance for you. So, Janet.
Yes, Felix.
What do you pick from the screen? What do you think we are saying?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and this ties into what we covered in budgeting. Because if I take, say, the first line where you want to grow your market share, there are three ways you can do it. And I think the first one you've put there is increase share of market. And how you can increase your share of market is, say, take away some of the market share from your competitors, right? And that's why you see people, say, advertising their brands, hoping that they'll be able to change the minds of consumers to move from one brand to another. If you're a market leader and there's no choice of product, then if you increase your price, people still have to buy your product. So that way you can grow your revenue by increasing the price. Then the third way is new products. And I think we spoke about this in the budgeting session, where you see brands like, I'll use BAT again, when they introduced the nicotine pouches. I don't know if you've seen them. They used to be called Lift, now they are called Velo. So they want to grow revenue, but they've seen, selling cigarettes, people are becoming more health conscious and they will not start smoking. So they came up with a safer product. So those are some of the ways. Then going down into cost of goods sold, you can negotiate discounts with your suppliers. You can buy in bulk, so that you get better prices. You see some suppliers say if you use a lot of fuel, you can get the fuel station, say Total, to store it in your premises, and you do consignment where you only pay for what you use. And then have alternative suppliers so that you don't depend on one. If supplier one increases the price, you always have an alternative. So I won't go through the whole slide, but when you look at the entire P&L, there are ways you can use the numbers to help you achieve the strategy. If it's, non-operational expenses, look at cutting your payroll, your utility bills. And that's why we had the finance session before coming into this strategic summary, because you as leaders or managers in your organization, numbers will be very key in achieving the strategy. So you need to be able to analyze the numbers that your teams are giving to you. Thanks, Felix.
You've introduced a very good concept. I will touch that. Thank you, Janet. So you remember I said we are now mapping what we've been doing from week 1 to week 9. When we come in to reduce payroll, Simon talked about optimizing the human resources. And when you look at your resources, you begin to realize you have idle capacity and idlers. And then you begin to ask some people to multitask, what we call job enhancement, so that now you can reduce your payroll. There are so many approaches to achieving this. Utilities, people are now converting to LEDs, energy savers. So making sure you build a culture of switching off the lights when you don't need them. So this will come from the strategic tactics. When you talk about reducing project expenses, the operational expenses, this is now where we talked about operational efficiency. What is the waste, some of the wastage and waste you're going to implement? Will you going to adopt Kaizen? Are you going to adopt Six Sigma in your organization? Are you going to adopt Lean? What tools are you going to use to reduce your project expenses? And why are we doing this? Because we have a strategy to decrease our OPEX by 10%. Why did we negotiate discount? We have a strategy to reduce our cost of goods by 10%. Why did we increase our share of market? Because we want to increase our revenue by 20%. By doing this, we are addressing our gross profit margins, which is our financial ratios, our profitability ratios. So we have addressed how we are going to increase our profitability ratio, gross margin, and net margin. When you look at liquidity ratios, we have what we call the current ratios, the quick ratios, and the cash flow ratios. Again, these will map the health of the business, the ability of the business to finance the short-term objectives are mapped on the current ratio. Are you able to pay your employees? Are you able to pay your suppliers? Are you able to pay your utilities? Those are short-term liabilities. Are you able to cover them? Do you have the current assets which are sufficient to cover your current liabilities? But now, what is the difference between the quick ratio and the current ratio? In the current ratio, of course, we have also involved your inventory and your prepaid your prepayments. So in quick ratio, we don't consider your inventories because you might not convert inventory very quick into, inventories might not be that liquid. So we remove inventory from your quick ratio to see if there is an emergency and you need cash like within this week. Maybe let's say there were floods. How quickly can you convert? So we look at your cash to cash, we look at cash equivalent, we look at market securities, we are looking at your accounts receivables. This one is easily convertible. So if we want to keep your quick ratio above a certain number, such that now the business, we know we can stand the shocks, we can stand emergencies. Now the cash flow ratio, we also want to keep it above a certain number, so that the money coming into the business is more than the money leaving the business. So we have a retainer, we are liquid. So this is the corporate target. So the main question we're asking, who will increase the share of market? So you push now this strategy to the business unit. Now, when the business unit realize that you've told them increase the share of market, what will they do? They will do another strategic plan, and their goal will be, they pick their goals from your tactics. I hope that makes sense. Their goal will start from the tactics, and they build other objectives, strategies, and tactics below that. So if their goal is to increase market share, Janet have said they will now see what competition they can do, what kind of advertisement they can do. So those things come now at the business level. The business teams, let them define their strategies. At the corporate level, our strategy was just to grow the revenue. But at the business level, the strategy will be even more detailed, that we're going to advertise, we are going to run campaigns, we are going to give free, I don't know what, lead magnets. We're going to do what we call activations. So you realize now this document is at corporate level. I'm trying to insist that because the business unit must now take the tactics as their goals and develop their strategies down. The department will even be more frugal and break it further. So now at the corporate level, you just need to show what do I need to achieve. So I will move to the second goal, customer experience. And the objective here is to achieve a very high customer satisfaction. So how are we going to measure our customer satisfaction? through what we call, we are going to use the strategy of NPS. So when we talk about the NPS, it's the Net Promoter Score. That is our strategy. How do we achieve a better NPS? Number one, make sure you have more promoters. So at the tactic level, increase your promoters and decrease your detractors, so that the net promoter score will begin to rise. Maybe year one, you're starting from NPS score of 3, but that is already a detractor. So you need to raise this. By the time you get into year 5, you need to have gone to above 7. So now you pass that tactic to the brand team. It's them to know how they're going to increase promoters and how they're going to manage detractors. Then we expect them to come up with a strategic plan addressing our tactics. Then again, to increase customer satisfaction, we want to grow our brand visibility. So again, we want to boost our brand awareness, push that agenda, push that tactic to the brand team. Let them tell us how, define the how, break it further. Okay, so internal processes, Mr. Simon has been running internal processes as long as I can remember. So it is talking to operations and routines. I want to call in Mr. Simon to mention a few things about what you can see on the screen. Simon?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Felix. Internal processes does not only feature at the goal level, but it's actually introduced at the performance management, one of the techniques, which is the balance scorecard. It will come in now to marry how the processes within an organization at any given activity runs down from the initiation all the way now to closure in terms of the attainment of the results. So really, when you look at it now from an organization perspective or a role perspective, we are purely coming in to recognize and appreciate that the way we run a given activity or the way we draw a function from the initiation all the way to impact or closure is purely a factor of how internally we are structured to to manage that particular process internally. So so from a perspective of looking at it from an inward perspective, we understand an organization has various functions which are now cascaded downhill to the teams at either an individual and group activities, and how the same now cumulatively runs and builds up to contribute to that to the single purpose of the organization becomes quite really critical. So this particular function is purely now a breakdown of an organization in terms of its various functions and how they come in to contribute to the organization's success and equally now the efficiency. So the biggest player here is actually once again the people. I know there was a meeting which I happened to have attended with Felix, and there was a statement which was made that was quite tough also on my end. That really, if you look at the people, sometimes, I mean, not sometimes, they are the biggest enemy to organization continuity or success in terms of attainment of results. So how we structure and allow them to onboard within an organized way of running things is really quite critical. And it is the same now which will give it to a build-up of now the routines of an organization from a process mapping level. Felix?
Awesome. Thank you, Simon. So now we can pick when we say we need to align our internal processes, then the objective, we can break it into operations and routines. So our strategy will be to standardize every operation, from finance, supply chain, business, operation, customer service, and HR. So what we are telling them, the tactics is you need to map your SOPs. You need to map your activity responsibility matrix. So now if it's finance, they will now pick that and now develop another column of their own tactics and tell us now we want to see their activity responsibility matrix, and then KPIs will be there, time, quality, and cost will be there. So that will speak now down as you cascade. When you come to rituals, this strategy is telling them, implement a monitoring and evaluation. On the tactic level, do it monthly or quarterly, ME. Also, we want you to implement a performance management as a routine. We are saying we need you to do performance appraisals. We want to see the tactics of rewards and recognition and disciplinary. We want to see tactics of job definition and duties. We want to see at the tactical level. Then we also define at the strategy level how languages and symbols are going to impact the organization in terms of routines. And at the tactic level, that can be now, language will be professional etiquette, symbols, there'll be signages, there'll be labels. I mean, when you work at a company in like Safaricom, you'll see they've done this very well in terms of language. They change every day. Right now they are running with Twaweza. Then they introduce another language, says tukiuke, pamoja tukiuke, or twende tukiuke, which is let's go beyond. So they are playing with language as part of the rituals. Symbols, when you walk to Safaricom, the entire worlds are full of symbols. Symbols showing how we are great. You'll see a picture of Eliud Kipchoge, blah, blah, blah. Those are symbols and signages so that they can speak to our culture. So we've placed that, and we have said now let the teams which are responsible take this as our plan and tell us now the fine details. Now the last one is team competencies. The objective is to achieve continuous upskilling of our teams, and we are saying strategically we are going to implement learning and development. So at the tactic level, this can be personal development, professional development, group trainings, industry seminars, or internal workshops. So I want now to bring it back to the team. I want to hear how this speaks to what you've been doing, whether you've seen a room for improvement, whether it makes it more clearer. I know Martin has just come from a strategic planning exercise. Are there things you can redefine a little bit more? I know Henry Kariuki is running an organization which will be looking to scale in the next few years. So, of course, when you're scaling, you need to be watchful about now your organizational structure. Maybe the vision is placed, the unit of purpose is in place. Maybe the routines are not in place. Maybe the structure is not in place. So when it starts to grow, how do you make sure as a leader, you're careful to put this in place and you're able to communicate through the strategy what every department is expected to do? How clear do you want to make this strategy? So to make it executable, we usually draw something we call a roadmap. I'll be sharing one of the roadmaps as an example. The roadmap now you break. We have said this is our 7-year strategy. But now what happens on year one? So the roadmap will pick financial performance and say year one, we are growing by 3%. We know year 7, we want to grow by 5x. So year 1, we are growing by 1.5x. Year 2, we are growing by 2x. Year 3. So that roadmap tells you, you need to measure yourself every year. So you break now the strategy into annual achievable goals, annual and realistic goals. So the roadmap becomes the next document you want to see. And the roadmap is actually what will be speaking and displayed on our walls. And every day we want to look at, are we according to the roadmap? Is there a variation? Is there a deviation? So I want to open now in the next few minutes to the team to hear how is this speaking to you, and is it you able to see how it is bringing a convergence of now what we said: human resource optimization, operational excellence, P&L, and budgeting, which were the other previous sessions. So who is going to be our first person? And we start with Kariuki.
Thank you, Felix. I think for me, first and foremost is, unlike I think Martin, who and maybe many of us here who have been involved in maybe the process of strategy, I come in as a novice. That I must admit. I have not sat really, and how when you look at me, you're looking at me now working for an organization. I have not sat in any of any strategic process or meeting or whatever the case might be. In fact, what I have seen is maybe just implementing what has been decided or put in place at the top level. And I must also admit that it is out of this class that now, every time I'm sitting with my boss, for example, from what we will pick, or rather we've taken from class, I will go and ask, for example, where are we in this? How are we in this? For example, a few weeks, I mean, like the last couple of weeks, I was key on numbers, for example. And I asked, how are we doing? How have we done this year? Because some of those things are never communicated. So for me, in terms of strategy and being a novice from that particular perspective, it is now asking myself where all those, for example, if you're talking about the ghost model, to just evaluate and see how best we can optimize maybe our performance and our goals in the coming years, as far as my tenure there is concerned. But more importantly, and now this is now fundamentally where you spoke, and Felix, is from my perspective, my small entity at the side. It is just making sure that from this I'm seeing is getting it right from the onset. And I think what I am doing is I am creating a roadmap for myself, so that when I am now fully operational, maybe by myself in the next few years, or when I now step into an organization, big organizations, and where you have all these operations, then I'm able to understand from a corporate side or from an organization perspective what it is that I need to do, what it is that I need to touch on, so that I can be an effective leader. That would be all, Felix. Thank you.
Thank you, Kariuki. There are chances that if I come to your organization, maybe you have not seen the strategic plan for the organization, and maybe you might be also operating without one, as we have seen the case in 80% of our organization. That means your responsibilities are not mapped in a certain manner, which has been communicated to you. So what we are saying is, if things were done in the right way, you could have actually been involved in developing one. If it's not there, you may want to prompt the organization that you have the knowledge and capability to develop one, and see how it looks like. Because when it is written, it becomes now measurable. And I know in the next class, we'll be moving to monitoring and evaluation, how to measure and analyze the performance. So performance management becomes difficult without a strategic plan. So figure out whether there's one and why it has not been communicated to you, why it is not a document which everyone refers to every day. And also for your small organization, try to develop one. So Ben Kanyita, how is your experience right now in terms of, do you have a strategic plan which is guiding your daily execution of whatever you're doing? If those are tactics you're executing. Ben Kanyita.
Yes, Felix. Today, to be honest, I've learned so much on the strategic planning, and I've just realized that the company that I'm working for, we're just working, we're just there, to be honest. There is no strategic plan that we have as a company. And the reason I say this is because we can't confirm the financial performance of the company as at now, in which we have been, as I've been sharing with one of us here, we have been trying to come up with that process where us having I've learned today. I think that like 10% wiser than the guys that we've been working with. Because I've not seen someone talk about the goals, the objectives, and the strategies, and maybe the tactics. That's the goal. I'm going to talk about this when we meet with some of the guys from the team. And wow, to be honest, I've learned. Thank you, Felix.
I'm very happy that you can find value.
Learning.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben Kanita. We're happy to learning. Anytime we are willing to come and help you actually establish and develop a strong strategic document, which will give you the direction. You can clearly tell where the organization is going in the next 5 years, such that when you are doing any planning at this time, you're affecting the bigger picture. When the bigger picture does not exist, then it's driving a car without a dashboard. You know, the car can overheat anytime, you can run out of fuel anytime, you have no visibility of where and whether you're doing good, whether you're healthy or not. Then we have Philip Mauti. Philip, have you seen your strategic plan, and are you operating within one?
What I can say today, I've learned several things, which in most cases it is not applied in my organization. Going forward, I'm going to apply. Some are applied and some are not applied. Even the strategic planning itself, even the elements I'm going to apply, it is clearly indicated here. And I think for today's lesson, I've learned a lot. So in our organization, I can it is 50-50. Yeah, it is 50-50. So going forward, I'm going to get in touch on what you have disseminated us so that we can apply it practically. That's what I can say, Mr. Felix.
Thank you so much. Another way to look at this is at a personal level. You may want to test this at a personal level, because all of us have financial goals. We have internal processes. We have our customers, which are stakeholders to manage. So at what level, how are you performing in all those areas? We have learning and developing goals. Can you try mapping your own strategy as an individual? And those of us who have families, you can even map the same. Then I want to go back to Martin Ireli. Martin, does this expound anything new? I know you are involved in strategy for 2 weeks. Does it shed any new light or something?
Yeah, thanks, Felix. It does. You know, after the strategy, we were supposed to go back and really now put the board's input into the strategy. And these were major inputs, because I remember some of the things that the team thought were strategic moves were watered down by the board. And they said, this is not a strategic move. And I'll give you an example of the team felt that we should be able to create our own ERPs and not resell the Microsoft ERP that we are selling. And that was really questioned. How long will it take you to have put developers to task to come up with an ERP that is as resilient and solid as a Microsoft ERP, versus putting the same or less energy into selling Microsoft ERP and being known as a Microsoft partner? So it really sheds a lot of light, because also on the tactics, as you mentioned, the business teams are now supposed to pick up and come up with their scorecards based on the activities that we agreed will help us to achieve our financial performance. One of the other things we also realized is that 3 of our biggest competitors were started by former employees of the company. And that brought really the HR team to task. They were at pains to explain how we lose someone who walks next door and starts a company and competes with us almost in all government parastatals. So the thinking now shifted from being able to attract talent to what we do with the talent that we attract. How comes we lose the best after attracting them? So this has really shed a lot of light, and what you have taken us through now puts it in a very simple format, because the strategy document is quite a huge one with a lot of details, and it's easy for someone to really get lost. But when you look at it now in terms of the goals, the objectives, the strategies, and the tactics, and then the business teams pick from the tactics and develop and put in the measurable now KPIs, then it becomes a lot simpler. So I've learned a lot. I know I'm missing on the financial, the 3 classes that we've done before. I want to take some time today and go through that, because it also really forms a huge part of the strategy, that financial understanding and budgeting. Yeah, Felix, I think that is it from me.
Thank you. That is very good feedback. I'm happy you're learning how to simplify. The reason we simplify strategy is for communication to the teams. Before I've been involved in a strategic plan which was 32 pages, and within 3 years I could not even understand what the document was all about. So now we've chose to separate the entire strategic document to what we call executive summary. So what I'm presenting, you'll find it on the top page. So when you walk into any investor or bank, they will focus on page number 1. So the strategic executive summary of the strategy, which is what you've seen on my screen, should always come as 1 page and should always be page 1. The rest are details. Of course, we are going to do competitor analysis, market analysis, market share, all those business forecasts. But without this 1 page, which is a summary of everything an investor wants to see, the investor can test the quality and the health of business using this 1 page. And this is what has been missing in the strategies which I've seen before in the organization which I've worked. So
yeah, Felix, I think you mentioned something I've just remembered. Sorry. When we started presenting, actually my team and I were kicked out by the board. And the reason was they looked at the slide and said, this is too much information. So they said, present information that is relevant to the board. The rest are details. And we had to walk outside with our consultant and really highly summarize what we had presented, and came back. And the parting shot from the board chair in the evening, as we were having just a relaxed session, is that they have realized the team keeps it's a template they use, and what they tasked me is actually to simplify that strategy, because they told me if you are presenting a lot of information to the board, it's hard to consume that information. So we are not making good use of the brains that are there. So in terms of the board members, so that's what I've remembered when you mentioned about simplifying things, especially for board consumption, so that we easily get their input.
You're very spot on. Thank you for that. Now you will be surprised how much conversation can come from this one-page summary. This can be discussed in terms of tactics the entire day. The board can give you tactics, which now will be passed on to the team to give further tactics internally. But we want to see on a global scale, how do we increase our revenue? How do we increase our efficiency to reduce our OPEX? How do we improve our cash flow positions? Now, we will be lost in that abundance of big documents. And that's why a lot of strategies are said to be complex. And the best place where they belong is on the shelf for 5 years, and we dust them on year 7. So we are now changing that narrative. We are evolving from that. So is there someone who needed to give, have I locked anyone out? Let me check. So if I've not locked anyone out, we will run through a conclusion. We'll run through your comments, your final remarks. I will start with any of the team members who have any remark remaining, and then I will go to Janet and then Simon. So as a way of assignment, you realize we don't mark these assignments because this assignment is for your own good. The assignment is for you to exercise and flex your muscles on the learning. So, but you're free to invite us to look at what you've done in terms of the assignment, and even at an individual level, we can help you. We can advise whether you're spot on, whether you need to rework a few things. This is what we call learning. So, the assignment is try to create a strategic plan for your organization. Where you are, if you're a team leader, call the people below you. Say, for our business unit, this is our organization. If it's a department, that is now you are the CEO of that department. Can you develop what you need to achieve for the next 3 years and discuss, do the process, involve the team, stakeholders, hear their ideas, brainstorm, and then categorize into the goals, objectives, strategies, and tactics. So, Ben, do you have any final remark? Kariuki, you have any final comments?
No, not at all, Felix. That would be all from me.
Okay, awesome. Then, Philip, do you have any final remark?
Yes. What I can say, if you or me and the people whom I work with don't understand where the company is going, they may all develop their own priorities and actually prevent you from getting where you need to be. So what I can conclude to say, this course will help me describe what I want to do and get the people where you want to go. That's what I have. Those are my closing remarks for today.
Awesome, awesome. Your last word, Martin, I know you've just spoken.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Felix and Tim. This is quite eye-opening. Yesterday, I had a meeting with a former colleague, and in the middle of discussions, I actually mentioned to him about OptiPro and what we are doing, and he was impressed. So it's real things we are talking about. It's actual things. This is not theory in class. These are things that we are now facing head-on day to day. So very informative. Happy to be part of this learning process. Thank you, Felix and Tim.
Thank you for that. Janet, your remarks.
Thank you, Felix. I'm really happy to hear that what we are taking the team through is actually helping them add value in their roles and in their organizations. And what I'll tell them, I know I say this after every class, we are available. Should you encounter anything during the week, feel free to reach out to us if you need any guidance. So thank you very much and have a good weekend.
Okay, thank you, Janet. Then we go to our executive director, Simon Kamau.
Thank you, Felix. Indeed, this is a job well done on your part. I could feel the energy, I could feel the passion, I could feel the connection, and I could also realize you are motivated to bring this topic out. And it's also quite inspiring knowing the whole of yesterday we were looking into this conversation. The feedback which has just come from the participants validates how they have really learned and picked a lot of value from this particular conversation. So that means how the conversation has been structured has actually been to the point. And what is coming out from their end is they appreciate, as much as they have been into various positions within an organization for some years, but this particular subject matter has really touched them and really impacted at them at personal and corporate level. What you will observe, just like Felix had put it, a vehicle without a dashboard is purely meant to disappoint you any given time. So when you look at strategy, it's purely the direction, and it comes out to demonstrate the why. The why and the what. So this is quite very important, because in the absence of you and we as human beings knowing why and what we exist for, then life becomes meaningless and we end up into depression. And of course, the end game is that we perish in a very dangerous manner. The same case applies to organization. So our encouragement today is that the information that you've picked here, as I have always emphasized, we keep sharing and opening up this conversation with our colleagues. Martin, I'm very impressed with yourself. The fact that you went out and did not sit on knowledge, but passed it over to your colleague and really went out to also showcase and demonstrate what OptiPro is doing. And equally, I'm convinced that by the time you're coming out to confess, it has already impacted on you at a personal level. So really, it's the same encouragement we are passing over to our participants here. Spread the word, give feedback. We are always open for feedback on improvement areas. We are not rigid, neither can we allow ourselves to stand foolish, not to listen and take into your inputs. And OptiPro remains open and available to support you at personal level and even within your own organization. I'll be interested to sit with Martin and see that draft one of the strategy that had the board kick them out at privacy or confidential levels, because he mentioned they had a consultant. But even with a consultant, the board had still to come in and ask them to step out and to really rework on this particular document. So this now marries into this conversation we started from the day one. If you don't really have a proper understanding of an organization and you are not in a position to crystallize, then when it comes to articulation, you cannot really score, because you will obviously come in, tap into too much heavy data. But what is required at the Martin's level is information. What is required at the board level is the insights, so that these people make decisions. So more often we present data to the board, and we forget that this data should be to our own team members, who now sit with their own supervisors to come up with information. And now the supervisors works with the senior leadership to arrive into insights for decision making. So I'm very inspired this morning, and I look forward to the next session on monitoring and evaluation. But kindly be our brand ambassadors, as we are just about to graduate, I mean, in a week's time from now, I'll rather close the session in a week's time or two from now. Let's keep on really making use of the knowledge we are picking here. Pass it over. As you pass knowledge, you keep on learning and you keep on tapping into new ideas, new thinkings, and new way of doing things. But if you sit on it, we'll surely get to meet up at some point in life. And CBC will sound as a very strange topic or discussion altogether. So I want to wish you all the best today. Once again, I want to thank Felix for this particular session, and Janet all together, and to our participants, and even for those who didn't manage to join. Let us spread the word that they get to sit through and listen to this particular topic, considering it will be of an impact. Thank you once again. Let's meet next on Thursday. We get to pick more on MNEs. Asanteni sana. Felix?
Thank you, Simon, for your remarks. So as we come to closure, we will be winding down week 11 and 12. That is the session 11 and 12 next week. After that, we want to give you 19 days. 19 days to put in practice what you've learned, because we want to give you a certificate of competence, and the competence will be recognized by the government. So for us to be sure you are a transformed leader, we want to allow you to demonstrate what transformation have you put in place, whether it's of operational efficiency or your human resource or your understanding and interpretation of numbers and forecasting. So within the 18 days, because we are going to wind up the class around 30th, it will be extremely important for you to demonstrate. We are planning a very big occasion for you. We want to ask if it is possible. we really want to meet physically as a team, probably on one of the Friday or Saturday around 19th of October. So if you can make arrangements, this will add more value to you. For those who will be absolutely not able, of course, we will make them access the discussion online. But we want to see how much value can we push into you by now making a very powerful conclusion and a graduation. Graduation is not just a certificate, but the discussion and networking that will happen in that day. So prepare for this. Prepare now in terms of what kind of change and transformation you're able to tell us, such that it will be a big testimony. We want to hear on the 19th of October, how has this impacted your life? How has this impacted your career path? Has this prepared you for the next big assignment of a CEO? Because really we are raising CEOs for tomorrow. That is our minimum target. Every one of us in this team, we will be only happy when you become a CEO. So that is the journey we've begun. So I want to bring this to a conclusion. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your participation. May God bless you and have yourself a wonderful day. Thank you, and you're free now to leave at your pleasure. I will share the document on our page.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.